Hey everyone, Vincenzo Calla here, and welcome to episode 30 of Let's Discuss Politics. Today, I'm glad to be joined by the Member of Parliament for Orléans and the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, Marie-France Lalonde. Marie-France was elected in the 2019 election and was re-elected in 2021. Prior to that, she was an MPP for Orleans for 5 years. Before entering politics, she used her degree in social work in a career that began at the Children's Aid Society, followed by the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario and the Ottawa Hospital. Marie-France currently serves as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Thank you, Marie-France, for joining me today.
Good morning. How are you doing? Well, actually, good afternoon, actually.
Well, this is going to be actually coming out in the morning, so that works too. So thank you so much for joining me. It's so great to have you, and let's get this interview started.
Definitely.
Our first segment is called Marie-France's Story, where we'll talk about your political history. So first off, when did you first get involved in politics?
Well, officially, I got involved in 2013, entering to become the candidate at the provincial level for the upcoming election in 14. But I would say to everyone who's listening, I would say politics is almost every day, right? We don't realize what's politics. I was a business owner. I manage employees. I manage retirement residences. I build them. Well, every day that you are confronted with an issue, you are also trying to solve the problem. So I would say part of our life, we are part of politics, but the pure of politics, I've always say one day I'll become a politician. I just did not know it would be as early as 2014.
Well, definitely, and politics, you never know what's going to bring you to it, and we'll talk about that world of politics around us later on. But you never know where it's going to lead you, and you got in as an MPP, and now you're sitting on Parliament Hill as the federal member. So, to that now, why did you decide to run for the position you hold? I know that you had been the MPP for a while, and why did you decide to step up to run federally in 2019?
So I was, as you mentioned, from 2014 to 2019 as a provincial member. I had the pleasure of being reelected in 18. But before that, I was also a cabinet minister in the past Liberal win government, where I had huge portfolio in a sense of doing things I love to do. It was businesses. I was the Solicitor General. Francophone, I was the Minister of Francophonie of Ontario. And all this together, after 2019, the local member was not seeking re-election. And a lot of people in my community said, you know, Marie-France, it may be good for you to put your experience and transfer it at the federal level. And, you know, having a conversation with my husband, it would be local. You know, I represent Orléans, and here the House of Commons is in Ottawa. A little bit less of the traveling to and from, but also the great experience that I've acquired over the 5 years as a provincial member. I felt that maybe I was ready for a different challenge. So I put my name, and you know, I have to say thank you to the people of Orléans and there was also things that always interested me, if I could say, you know, everything to do with the international relation. That's something very strong for me in terms of a passion to the relationship between Canada and the rest of the world. I also felt very strong that as this government was taking strong action on climate change and the environment, that it was great to be bringing my experience as a former cabinet minister provincially into that conversation piece at the federal level. And also representing Orléans, it is, you know, two official language. So also I thought that that would be valued federally, that the official language was being modernized. I could help. And then there's also the immigration. And this is kind of unique because now I'm the PS of immigration. But before that, in 19, you know, a lot of my constituents, immigration is definitely important for our growth on the economy, but also to reunite families and for people who choose Canada as a destination. So I think all this helped me to say, I can work at the federal level, I have interest at the federal level, and I can contribute at the federal level.
Well, definitely, and a lot of points you brought up there, and especially, you know, you're in Ottawa. A lot of your colleagues travel from all over the country, but you're not too far away from Parliament Hill, and Ottawa is a bilingual city, especially Orleans, Vanier. You know, last year I had your provincial counterpart Stephen Blais on the show. Also had Lucille Collard from Vanier as well last year, and we chatted all about that. How Ottawa's, especially these communities, are bilingual. French is very big in these areas, and that's important, especially when you're in a government where English and French are equal. It's very
They
important to have
should
that
be equal,
representation.
but
Should
they
be,
should
should
be. And
be,
that's
should
why
be.
I'm bringing that contribution, because French, in all fairness, have declined. So, and that's also why federally there was some significant importance for me to bring my name on that ballot in 19, to be also that voice of the official language. And certainly as a proud Franco-Ontarien, but also the former Minister of Francophonie of Ontario, I know the necessity to help in giving a little bit more focus on our immigration, Francophone immigration, but also on the official language. And I'm very proud to see that our government's taking, good step. The bill is making its way down the pipeline, and certainly the action plan for next year will be released.
Next segment now is called Serving as an Elected Official, where we'll talk a bit about your experiences and achievements so far as an elected official. So first up, what's your favorite part about serving your community as an elected official?
Well, I've experienced it in the last couple of days. So it's having the community and reaching out. So as a local member, I do several events all throughout the year. So we recognize women in their leadership position and young women in their leadership. So that recognition of all the contribution. I also like to host events. So we do movie night, which we had Friday evening, where close to 500 people actually came to a movie night with their family. And you see the beauty is that you see the generational status. So you see sometimes grandparents with their grandchildren, parents with their kids, and sometimes you see all generations. So you see the grandchildren, the parents, and the grandparents coming to a movie night. So I would say for me is reaching out to my community, listening to them, but also coordinating events where we can all come together and have a good time.
Definitely. And continue on that now. What has been your favorite achievement as an MP so far? And maybe even your favorite achievement when you were in government in Ontario?
So as an MPP, we'll start there. I had the great honor of being successful in, well, it's not me because it's a lot of work from our school board, but we built 4 schools and renovated 1. We've also did our Carrefour Santé Orléans, who's going to be renamed, but the healthcare hub of Orleans. It was a $75 million investment in Orléans. The LRT, that was a big component, both provincially and federally. I was working with the then member of Parliament, Andrew Leslie, and together we secured from Place Orleans to Trim Road like a 50-50 cost between the provincial government and the federal, allowing this project to see the sort of full completion of the east part of LRT. And that was important because the city did not had foreseen this or costed out all the way to Trim. So that was an important part. So as a federal member, I'm very happy to see the construction actually and everything happening. I was elected in 2019. I didn't anticipate a pandemic, and I don't think none of us did. But when I think about, it's not just my achievement, I say our government's achievement in helping support individuals who were in desperate need. So I'd say it's kind of hard to focus on just one federally, because the reality is that there was so much, vulnerability and anxiety in our community of Orléans. So from, helping and listening to conversation of people who had lost their parents in our long-term care, and making sure that my government at the federal level was, finding a way of helping, although it is not our jurisdiction per se, finding a way of helping support our long-term care center during and the workers, right, in those healthcare profession. And then there was all the businesses, right, who were asked to close for all the right reason, and they did, for those that could close, but leaving a lot of uncertainty on those businesses. So, I think my voice was very strong within the government to say we need to support our small business owners, and certainly coming from Orléans, there was a lot of anxiety in our retails and in our small businesses. And then you have all the schools, right? Then because I had provincial background, a lot of the parents and the school boards were like, Mère France, I know it's federal, like you're a federal member, but there's a necessity. So we've also created a path of transferring more money into our education system through our provincial transfer system in supporting. And then there was, the backlog of surgery. I can understand this, and I understand because I lived in our healthcare sector before politics for 22 years. So my voice, it's not just mine. It was, I think, collective voice, but I was very proud and very pleased to be elected as a federal member in that time, because I knew and understand, and I was there to support, and happy that my government find a way, our students, right? And so these are all related to pandemic initiative, but it also is of a massive importance in my political life, because this will be remembered. I remember at 2:00 in the morning being on the call with a family from Portugal who was stuck there because, everything had shut down and they didn't anticipate this. They were on a mission, right? We had a group of youth who were doing an exchange in Peru in the middle of nowhere, if I could say. And how do you bring them from A to B to possibly an airport that could have a plane to bring them back home to Canada, because we didn't anticipate this struggle. So these are moments as a politician that I will, I wouldn't say cherish, because I wish we didn't have to go through this pandemic. But since we had to, I'm very proud of the decisions of my government, and I was happy to be the voice of our community of Orléans in making sure that those support system, those concerns were clearly expressed. From a more parliamentarian perspective, if I could say, I'm very pleased. I've taken interest, as I said, as a federal member in international relations. So I'm the president of Canada France. I've also created 3 friendship groups between Canada and Slovenia, Slovakia, and Romania. I'm on a few executive of friendship group within our parliament, and these are also very important aspect of me being a parliamentarian and doing other things. Because I represent Orleans, I also asked in 2019 to be on the Committee of Veterans Affairs, and I was very privileged to be asked to serve as a permanent member in 2019 to 2021 on the permanent Committee of Parliament of Veterans Affairs. And that was very emotional also, and very knowledgeable for me, representing a community of defense and veterans. So those are all a little bit of everything, if I could, but there's so much more. And I think that's why for me, it's the next step, right? So we need to complete the LRT. So that's under construction. There's also a commitment to rebuild an organization called a MIFO in Orléans that it's over 42 years old. It is in dire need of a new structure. So we're working on this, and it's for la francophonie, but it also has classes. It would have a gymnasium. So it will be a multi-purpose community environment. Those are key part. There's also the Saint-Joseph. We're working very closely with the city on the revitalization because of the LRT. It brings opportunity. Affordable housing is also part. I know Orleans is probably not top rank of needs, but there is many individuals in our community who needs the affordability piece of housing. So I've been working very closely with our city officials and our elected officials to see some project coming in our eastern part of Ottawa and Orléans most. And then we're working with our businesses, right, to make sure that they are successful. There is a huge pilot project at the Place d'Orléans, which is the co-sharing public servant model. It was a pilot initiated in 19. Because of the pandemic, it stopped. It is now back on, and guess what? It is the most successful and the most used co-sharing public servant space. So I want to make the pilot permanent. I'm hoping to actually expand on it. Those are commitments for our community that I'm working every day.
Let's go into the last segment now, which is called Politics Are All Around Us, where we'll talk about this world of politics that surrounds us and kind of like what you talked about at the beginning. So, first off, I wanted to ask you, who is or who was another politician that inspires you?
So, definitely Jean Chrétien, as a former Prime Minister of Canada. I grew up in Gatineau. And, I'm a very proud Canadian. And Mr. Chrétien, was very successful as a government. So that's for me certainly has inspired me. Provincially, Madeleine Meilleur, I call her my godmother of politics because when I was first elected, actually, she helped convincing me to put my name forward, but she also took me under her wings in 2014 in making sure that as a new member at Queen's Park, being away from my family most days, I felt that I had friends, and I was very lucky also to have Bob Shirelli, just having those conversations with my cabinet colleagues in 2014 and hearing their perspective. But Madeleine is truthfully an inspiration for me. And I felt quite sad when she announced her retirement from politics, but then I felt very anxious because then I had to fill up her shoes as the former Minister of Francophonie of Ontario. But, she is a friend, and I really feel inspired every time I see her, how engaged and involved she is. So those are probably provincially and federally. And then, there's individuals that over the years have marked my life, but I would say federally, certainly Mr. Chrétien, certainly my current leader, our current Prime Minister Trudeau. But if you look before 2015, and that inspiration for politics, Mr. Chrétien has definitely, and Madame Meilleur.
And finally, now I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on this, but what is an issue that you think needs to be focused on more by your government, by all decision makers? What's an issue that needs to be focused on more?
Well, so there's a few. I cannot just answer one because I think it's so like I look at my portfolio of immigration. It is because of the labor shortage, I think immigration is one part of the solutions. I'm very proud to be part of a government that sees that is willing to work hard in addressing the labor shortage, but also the necessity as Canadians to welcome more. And my husband is from El Salvador. He was welcome in this country, had opportunity, did well for himself. And I'm proud to see our government going in that direction. I'm also very proud to see that, and the importance of helping those that are most vulnerable currently. I think that's going to be very important as we go forward. But all this is related to climate change and the environment. And that's something, not only because I represent Orléans, who has a very strong sentiment about the environment and climate change, but I think that everything that we do as a government has a domino impact. We've seen it in the Atlantic, when Fiona affected and impacted, where there's a cost associated with the rebuild. And not only that, they lost people, like people die because of that. We see it in the West in British Columbia, those fires. So, so everything is intertwined. So for me, the initiative of going forward in addressing our climate change, meeting our target, finding ways of helping people to know that we're in this together. And there's going to be measures that we're going to have to take as a government, but we hope that people understand that this is to save not only Canada, but our planet. When I spoke to you about internationally, for 2 years, I was asked as a Canadian member of Parliament to be part of a of a round table, and it was through Zoom because we were in the pandemic. But I had the pleasure of talking to many people in Scotland, in Taiwan, in Lebanon, and South Africa. And we collectively realized the impact of climate change, and that also had to do with migration and peace in this world. So for me, if we don't tackle as the world doesn't tackle climate change, well, it has a domino effect not only here in Canada, but if people have to move from home to go to a different city within a certain country, or leave that country because there's drought and they cannot have food security, and they leave to another country, well, has a huge impact on our world dynamic, if I could say. And our study was to demonstrate that world peace is only achieved if we work together as world leader. So I'm very pleased to see Canada taking stronger and firmer approach on that. And I hope that all of us can collectively go behind and seeing the reason why we need to make certain decision. Yeah, so I would say climate change but you cannot minimize right now, right? Like right now, certainly the cost of living, the inflation, people are talking about this. They're generally concerns about that. And we have, as a government, are responding by, helping our students with the federal portion of the interest to be eliminated permanently. We've helped renters with the $500 in the program just opened. We're helping with the GST to provide an extra. So they're targeted, very measured on our most vulnerable, but we know collectively, we need to be all in this together.
So that is all for today. Thank you, Marie-France, so much for joining me.
Well, thank you very much, and all the very best. And to everyone who's listening, I wish you all, I'm not sure exactly when this will air, but right now it is the holiday season. We just had our first snow. So I wish you all a great holiday season. For those who are celebrating, Merry Christmas, de joyeuses fêtes, and a very happy New Year of 2023.
Well, it was great having you, and thank you so much. And if you liked today's interview, make sure to go check out my other interview with Marie-France on Instagram for top 10. So if you're watching this the day of the premiere, it's going to be coming out on Friday. So to stay updated, make sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at BC Productions 25. Check out my website, VincenzoCalla.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, and choose to get notifications here on YouTube. Let's Discuss Politics is a VCalla production. So until the next video, I'm Vincenzo Calla, signing out.